I still remember the sound of that night like it's trapped inside my bones. The wind wasn't just blowing, it was howling, scraping against the glass walls of my house like it was trying to get in. Snow was falling in thick, heavy sheets, the kind that makes the whole world look like it got erased and redrawn in white. The city lights below were just a blur, swallowed by the storm, and my mansion on top of the hill felt more like a glass cage than a home. It was almost midnight. Every sane person was inside, warm, sleeping, with someone to hold, or at least someone to talk to. I had a glass of whiskey in my hand and a spreadsheet open on the laptop in front of me. Quarterly projections, profit margins, expansion plans. Sometimes I wondered if anyone ever looked at a billionaire's life from outside and thought, he has everything, and had no idea that everything could still feel like nothing at all. The only light in the room came from the fire in the fireplace and the screen of my laptop. It reflected on the glass walls and gave me a ghost-like version of my own face staring back at me. My name is Ethan Cole, CEO, billionaire, founder of a tech empire people like to talk about in business magazines and podcasts. They call me the man who turned code into gold. Funny thing is, no one ever asks what that gold cost. I shifted my shoulders. My tie loosened, my shirt sleeves rolled up. I could feel the dull ache at the back of my neck, the kind that never goes away when you live with constant tension. My phone was face down on the table, buzzing every now and then with emails I ignored on purpose. I wasn't in the mood to talk to anyone. Not my assistant, not my board, not my so-called friends, especially not tonight. The date burned like a silent notification in the back of my mind. January 14th, the anniversary of the night my wife died. I tried not to look at the framed photo on the shelf near the fireplace, but I always failed. Her smile pulled my eyes to it like gravity. Claire, with her messy brown hair, laughing at something I had probably said that wasn't that funny. But she'd always laugh anyway. She used to say snow was romantic. I used to say snow was inconvenient. Now I knew the truth. Snow was dangerous. Snow was the thing that kept the ambulance from getting to her in time. Snow was what covered the road in black ice. Snow was what made the car slide off the side of the highway that night, 3 years ago. Snow was what I blamed every time my chest tightened and the guilt crawled back up my throat like a fist. If I hadn't told her, "Go ahead, I'll meet you there," maybe she'd still be alive. If I'd insisted on driving her myself, if I'd cancelled the stupid meeting that felt so important at the time. If, the word that never changes anything. I was staring at the bottom of my whiskey glass when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong in that house. At first it was soft, barely noticeable over the wind. 3 small, hesitant knocks on the front door. I frowned. I don't get visitors at midnight. Not here, not on a mountain in the middle of a snowstorm. I set the glass down and listened, thinking maybe I imagined it. Then I heard it again. 3 knocks, a little stronger, but still timid. My first instinct wasn't concern. It was suspicion. When you have my kind of money, paranoia is just another line item on your mental budget. I walked through the hallway, the motion sensors turning on the lights as I passed. The house felt even bigger when it was quiet, every step echoing off marble and glass. Outside, the wind slapped the windows like a warning. By the time I reached the front door, my heart was beating faster, and I didn't know why. I checked the small monitor by the door that connected to the security cameras. The screen showed nothing but swirling snow. No car in the driveway, no figure on the steps, just white, chaotic blur. I almost turned around and chalked it up to the storm. Then I heard it again. This time, the knock was so soft it almost sounded like a plea. I unlatched the deadbolt and opened the door. At first, I didn't see her. The wind rushed in, a slice of freezing air cutting through the warmth of the house. Snowflakes flew into the foyer, landing on the polished floor like crushed glass. I squinted into the night, my hand automatically raising to shield my face from the wind. Then my gaze dropped. She was small, almost swallowed by the darkness and the snow. A little girl, standing on the top step, her boots half buried, her arms wrapped tightly around her thin coat that wasn't made for this kind of weather. Her hair was dark and messy, with snowflakes clinging to it. Her cheeks were red and raw from the cold, and her lips were trembling, but it was her eyes that hit me hardest. Big, brown, terrified. She looked up at me like I was the last person in the world who could help her. "Sir," she whispered, her voice shaking. My mom never came home last night." My brain registered the words, but my body froze. It was like time split in half. For a second I saw her, this small, shivering girl on my doorstep. And for another second, layered on top of that, I saw Claire on the side of a snowy road, trapped in a car, waiting for help that came too late. I grabbed the edge of the door a little tighter. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice coming out lower than I expected. She swallowed, her chin quivering as she tried to stay composed. "My mom didn't come home last night," she repeated, a little louder this time. "I waited all night. I thought she'd be back, but she didn't come. I didn't know what to do." Her teeth were chattering so hard, the last words almost fell apart. I stepped forward, instinct cutting through my shock. Cold air slammed into my bare forearms, but she looked 10 times colder than I felt. "You're freezing," I said. "Come inside." She shook her head so fast snow fell from her hair. "No, I can't stay," she stammered. I just need help. Please." There was something about the way she said "please" that made it sound like it was costing her something, like she wasn't used to asking for anything. My mind scrambled for logic. Where did she even come from? There were only a few properties near mine, big, private estates belonging to people as rich and isolated as I was. I didn't remember seeing a little girl any time I visited the neighbors, which was rare anyway. Kids didn't just wander through a storm to knock on a stranger's door, especially not at a place like this. I took a breath and tried to ground myself in reality. "Okay," I said carefully, keeping my voice steady. "What's your name?" She sniffed, wiping her nose with the back of her gloved hand. "Lily," she whispered. "Okay, Lily." I nodded slowly. "My name is Ethan." "Do you know who I am?" Her eyes flicked once over my shoulder, into the house, like she expected to see something she recognized. "My mom, she told me," Lily said quietly. "She said you live up on the hill. She said, you're the man who owns the big company, the one with all the screens." Her fingers tightened on her coat. "She said you're a good man." The words landed heavier than she probably intended. A good man. I wasn't sure I deserved that description. Not from anyone. Especially not from a kid who walked through a snowstorm because she had no one else to turn to. "Your mom told you to come here?" I asked, my mind jumping to worst-case scenarios. "Is she in danger? Did something happen?" Lily shook her head, but there was a panic in her eyes that said she wasn't sure of anything anymore. "She left for work yesterday." Her voice wavered. "She works nights, at the diner down near the highway. She said she'd be home before I woke up for school. But when I woke up, she wasn't there." She bit her lip, and I saw tears forming, mixing with the snow on her lashes. "I waited all day. Then it started snowing more, and I didn't know what to do. We don't have a phone anymore, and—" She looked down, ashamed of something that wasn't her fault. I got scared, so I remembered what she said, that if anything ever went really, really wrong, I should come here. She said you help people. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so painfully wrong. I helped companies, I helped investors, I helped shareholders and quarterly reports. I didn't help people, not in the way that mattered, not in the way I should have helped Claire when she called me 3 years ago, her voice weak, saying, "The roads are bad, Ethan, I'm scared." I cleared my throat. "Okay," I said, forcing myself to stay present. "Where do you live, Lily?" "In the trailers." Her hands tightened into fists inside her gloves. "Down near the old gas station, the ones on the side road. Mom says it's temporary until things get better." I knew the place she was talking about. A cluster of run-down trailers parked on a forgotten patch of land by the highway. Most people drove past without looking. I'd seen it, though, from the back seat of my car with tinted windows. I'd looked out at it once and thought abstractly, people live like that. Then I'd gone back to my meetings and my mergers and my problems that no longer felt like real problems at all. The storm outside picked up, snow flying sideways now, stinging my skin. Lily shivered hard enough that her teeth began to click again. "Lily, you can't stay out here," I said. "You're going to get sick. Come inside, just for a minute. We'll figure out what to do." She hesitated, her eyes flicking again past me into my house. I realized how intimidating it must look to her. A huge open foyer, polished floors, modern furniture, everything clean and warm and expensive. The kind of place that didn't even look real when you'd spent your life in a trailer. "I don't want to mess anything up," she whispered. I felt something twist in my chest. "You're not going to mess anything up," I said firmly. "You have my word. You're safe here." And that word, safe, seemed to decide it for her. She stepped forward, her boots squeaking against the wet floor as she crossed the threshold. A wave of warm air hit her, and I saw her shoulders slump just a little in relief. Snow clung to her coat and hair, already melting, dripping onto the expensive rug by the door. I didn't care. I closed the door behind us, shutting out the wind. The house went quiet again, the storm now a muffled roar on the other side of the glass. Lily stood there, small and unsure, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to breathe too loudly. I shrugged out of my suit jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. It practically swallowed her, but she grabbed the lapels and held it tight around herself like it was a lifeline. "There," I said. "Better?" She nodded, eyes wide. "Thank you." "Come on," I said. "Let's get you something warm to drink." I led her into the kitchen, the soft lights illuminating the sleek countertops and stainless steel appliances that hardly ever got used. Everything in my life was automated. Private chef, grocery deliveries, prepped meals. I knew how to build a billion-dollar company, but I barely knew how to make a decent cup of coffee. I turned on the kettle for hot chocolate, one of the few things I could manage without burning the house down. Lily stood near the island, her fingers tracing the edge of my jacket, taking in the kitchen, like it was a different planet. "Do you live here alone?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," I replied. "No wife, no kids?" The questions were innocent, but they sliced through me anyway. "No," I said, keeping my back to her as I grabbed a mug. "Not anymore." I heard her shift her weight from one foot to the other. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Did they leave?" I let out a breath. "She died," I said simply. "In a car accident on a night kind of like this one." The kettle whistled, a high-pitched sound that gave me an excuse to move, to do something with my hands. I poured the hot water into a mug and stirred in the cocoa mix. When I slid it across the counter toward her, she looked at it like it might vanish if she blinked too long. She wrapped her hands around the mug, closing her eyes for a second as the heat seeped into her fingers. "Thank you," she murmured. "You're welcome," I said. "Drink it slowly. It's hot." She took a careful sip and winced a little, then smiled, a small, tired, grateful smile. It was the first time I'd seen anything close to happiness in her expression, and it hit me harder than it should have. I grabbed my phone from my pocket, my rational brain finally starting to take control. "We should call the police," I said. "If your mum's been missing since last night, they need to know. They can start looking for her." As soon as I said police, Lily's whole body stiffened. "No," she said quickly, her voice rising a little. "Please, no. Don't call them." I frowned. "Lily, if your mom is missing—" "She's not missing," she shot back, too fast, like she was trying to convince herself. She probably got stuck because of the snow. Or maybe something happened to the car. Or her boss made her work late and she couldn't get home. She wouldn't just leave me. She wouldn't." Her eyes were shiny with panic, her small fingers clenched tighter around the mug. I softened my tone. "I'm not saying she left you," I said gently. "I'm saying she might need help too. The police they'll take me away," she blurted out. I stopped. "What?" "If they find out I was alone all night, they'll call those people. The ones who take kids away." She swallowed. "My mum told me. She said, if anyone finds out we don't have anyone else, they might say it's not safe for me to stay with her, and then they'll take me. She said she's trying her best, she's working on it, she just needs time. I don't want to go with strangers." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away angrily. "I just want my mom." The fear in her voice was so raw it made my arguments die in my throat. I stared at her for a few long seconds, my phone heavy in my hand. Legally, calling the police was the logical thing to do. But logic doesn't always comfort a terrified little girl who walked alone through a blizzard instead of dialing 911 because somewhere in her short life she learned that authority might separate her from the only person she loves. I set the phone down on the counter, pressing my palms against the cool surface as I thought. "Okay," I said finally, "we won't call them. Not yet." Relief washed over her face so fast it almost hurt to watch. "But we are going to look for her," I added. "You said she works at the diner near the highway, right?" She nodded quickly. "Yeah, the one with the big red sign. Millie's Diner. She's been working nights there for a few months." I knew that place too. My driver drove past it every time he took the old highway to avoid traffic. It was the kind of diner where truckers stopped for coffee and people on long drives stopped for cheap pancakes at 2 a.m. I checked the time on the oven clock. 12:07 a.m. Road conditions were getting worse by the minute. "You walked all the way here from the trailers?" I asked, a thought suddenly hitting me. "Yeah," she said like it was nothing. "In this snow?" She looked at the floor. "It took a while." "How long?" I don't know," she admitted. "It was dark and cold, and I fell once, but I got back up because I had to. I felt something inside me respond to that. I'd spent years telling myself I had no choice but to keep moving, keep building, keep making more money, like stopping to actually feel anything would make everything collapse. But looking at this girl, I realized she understood no choice at a level I never had. She didn't have a board of directors. She didn't have a private driver or a team or millions in reserves. She had one person, her mum, and her mum was gone. I grabbed my coat from the hook by the door to the garage and shrugged it on. "Finish your hot chocolate," I said. "We're going to find your mom." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. We are?" "Yes." I picked up my car keys. "I'm not letting you walk back out there alone. We'll take my car, we'll drive to the diner and the road leading to your place. We'll see if we can find her or her car. If we don't find anything soon, we'll figure out the next step. Together." "Together," she repeated softly, like it was a new word she was trying on. She set the mug down, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and straightened her shoulders like she was trying to be braver than she felt. "Okay," she said. "I'll show you the way." And as I looked at this little girl who had walked through the storm to my door with nothing but fear in her eyes and hope in her chest, I felt something shift inside me. 3 years ago, I hadn't gone out into the snow. 3 years ago, I'd chosen a meeting over a rescue. This time, there was no meeting, no excuse, no delay. The storm outside was getting worse, but I didn't care. Because when Lily looked up at me and whispered, "Sir, my mom never came home last night," I froze when I heard the rest. "I think something bad happened. You're the only person I know who might help." For the first time in a very long time, I knew exactly what I had to do. I had to walk back into the snow. Lily stood quietly as I helped her into the passenger seat of my SUV. The storm whipped against us like it was trying to push us back inside the house, but she held onto my coat sleeve, determined. Her boots were soaked, her jeans stiff from the cold, and when she climbed into the seat, she shivered so hard the entire car seemed to vibrate with her. I turned on the engine, and the heater blasted warm air into the cabin. For a moment she just sat there with her hands outstretched toward the vents, her breaths coming out in small, white clouds. "You warm enough?" I asked. She nodded, but her voice betrayed her. Yes." I grabbed the spare blanket I kept in the back, something I usually used for emergencies or late-night work trips, and draped it over her lap. She grabbed it like it was treasure. "Thank you," she whispered. I paused for a moment, taking in the image of this tiny girl in my expensive car, wrapped in a blanket that looked 3 sizes too big for her, snow still clinging to her hair. It felt surreal. I pulled out of the driveway, the tires crunching through inches of fresh snow. Visibility was awful, barely a few feet ahead. The headlights cut through the storm, but the world outside looked like a swirling tunnel of white. "Which way?" I asked. She pointed through the windshield. "Down the hill." Then left at the sign with the broken light. I followed her directions, hands tight on the steering wheel. The wind pushed against the car like an animal trying to tip it over, but the SUV held firm. Lily's eyes were glued to the window, scanning the emptiness outside, as if expecting to see her mother appear out of the storm. "How old are you, Lily?" I asked gently, hoping to anchor her mind away from panic. 8, she said without looking at me. 8, I repeated softly. "That's brave." "What you did tonight," she shrugged, her voice a thin thread. I had to." There it was again. That same quiet resilience, that same survival instinct I recognized in people who never had anything handed to them. I drove slowly down the mountain road, tires gripping the ice-covered pavement. The wipers struggled to keep up with the snow accumulating on the windshield. "Does your mom always work nights?" I asked. "Mostly," she said. "She doesn't like leaving me alone, but she says nighttime shifts pay more, and I'm older now, so she says I can be responsible." "Do you stay alone every night?" "No," she said quickly. "Just sometimes, when she can't find anyone to watch me. But she always comes home before morning, always." Her voice cracked on the last word. I kept my eyes on the road, but my jaw tightened. "And you didn't hear anything? Any call? Any message?" "We don't have a phone," she said sheepishly. "Mom said we'd get a new one when we got the electricity bill caught up." I nodded slowly, swallowing the anger that rose in my chest. Not at her, not at her mother, but at a world that made a child feel responsible for bills. We reached the main road. The snow was deeper here, piled high on the sides, the icy wind tearing through the empty highway like a blade. No cars, no lights, just darkness and snow. "Is this where she would drive home?" I asked. Lily nodded. "Yes, she takes this road. It's the fastest." I slowed the car even more, scanning the edges of the road for any sign of a vehicle, headlights, tire tracks, anything. "Tell me about your mom," I said, trying to keep her calm. She hesitated, then softly, "She's the best." The words came out so full of certainty it made my throat tighten. "She always makes me pancakes on my birthday," Lily went on, "even when we can't afford syrup. She works a lot, but she still reads me stories when she gets home. And she never gives up." She clutched the blanket tighter, even when things are hard. I pictured a woman working night shifts, fighting winter roads, fighting life, fighting to give her daughter something better. "How long has it been just you two?" I asked. "Since my dad left," she said simply. "He went away when I was 5. Mom said he wasn't good for us. And you haven't seen him since?" "No," she said, "and I don't want to." There was something fierce in her tone, small but strong, that told me she had seen things a child shouldn't have seen. We drove in silence for a moment, the car jostling with every snowdrift we passed through. My fingers were stiff from gripping the wheel too tightly. Then Lily suddenly pressed her hand against the window. "Stop!" she cried. I slammed the brakes, the back of the car fishtailing slightly before the traction control steadied it. My heart thudded against my ribs. "What is it?" I asked. She pointed outside. Those are car tracks." I leaned forward, squinting through the storm. The fresh snow was thick, but underneath it I could make out a faint pair of tire tracks leading off the main road and into a narrow side path that barely looked used. "That's not a road," I muttered. "But Mom sometimes takes shortcuts," Lily said quickly. "She does it when she's running late. She says it saves 10 minutes. I hesitated. The path looked barely drivable. Steep, unmaintained, covered in snow. She followed my silence and whispered, "Please, can we check? Just to be sure." Her voice was so small, so hopeful, that I couldn't say no. I turned the wheel and slowly followed the faint tracks. The SUV climbed the incline, snow cracking under the wheels. The road narrowed, trees arching overhead, branches heavy with snow. "Do you remember this way?" I asked. "A little," she said, "but it's different at night." We continued deeper, the storm growing louder around us. The headlights illuminated nothing but snowflakes and trees. My pulse quickened. "Look," Lily whispered suddenly. "Up there." At first I didn't see anything. Then, as the wind shifted, something metallic glinted in the lights. My stomach dropped. A car, partially buried in snow, half tilted into a ditch. I pressed my foot on the brake. Lily gasped. "Mom's car!" The panic in her voice tore straight through me. I pulled over as close as possible. The wind blasted the car as soon as I opened the door. Snowflakes hit my face like icy needles. "Ethan!" Lily cried. "Is she in there?" "Stay in the car," I ordered gently but firmly. "I'll check." She nodded, tears forming again. I trudged toward the car, snow almost up to my knees. My breath puffed out in clouds as my heart pounded. "Hello?" I shouted. "Is anyone there?" No answer. The car was dented on one side, the front bumper cracked. The windshield was spider-webbed with fractures, likely from hitting a tree or a rock. The driver's side door was half open, snow piling inside the seat. My chest tightened. She must have been freezing. I reached the door and pulled it open wider. The interior was dark, empty, no one inside. Then I noticed something, footprints, half covered by snow, leading away from the car, toward the woods. I felt a coldness that had nothing to do with the weather crawl up my spine. She had left the car. She had walked into the storm. I turned back toward the SUV. Lily was standing now, her small face pressed against the window, fogging up the glass. She saw my expression. Her hands flew to her mouth. "No," she mouthed. I walked back, opened the door, and crouched down to her level. "Lily," I said softly, "your mom isn't in the car." Her eyes filled instantly. "Then where is she?" "I found footprints," I said. "They lead into the woods. She might have gone to look for help." "She might. She wouldn't leave me," Lily cried. "She wouldn't. Something happened to her." Her panic sliced through the air like a blade. I put a hand gently on her shoulder. "We're going to find her," I promised. "But you need to stay in the car where it's warm. It's too cold for you out here." She grabbed my sleeve. "Please don't leave me." "I won't," I said. "I'll be right back. I'm just going to follow the prints a little bit. Not far. I need to know which direction she went." She stared at me with raw fear, the kind I'd seen once before, from Claire, as she said goodbye at the hospital doors and the nurses pushed me away. I swallowed hard. "I promise," I said again. "I'll stay close." She let go slowly, trembling. I closed the door, making sure the heater stayed on, and turned toward the tracks. The trees loomed over me as I followed the footprints into the woods, the snow crunching under my boots. The storm swallowed sound, but the quiet felt wrong. Like the whole forest was holding its breath. The tracks were uneven, spaced strangely, as if whoever made them was stumbling. My throat tightened. She was hurt. The snow got deeper, the wind stronger, the trees denser. Then I saw something. Not footprints. Something dark, half buried in the snow. I rushed forward, my breath catching. A glove. A woman's glove. Small, thin. I bent down and picked it up. It was freezing cold, stiff with ice, and stained with something dark near the palm. Blood. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a woman lost in a storm. Something had happened to her. I looked deeper into the forest. The storm wailed, the darkness pressed closer, and then a sound, a sharp crack, somewhere ahead, not from the wind, not from a branch breaking, a human sound, a cry. I froze, then another cry echoed, weak, muffled, desperate. My pulse slammed through my veins. She was alive. I turned back toward the SUV, where Lily's small silhouette was pressed against the window, watching me. I raised my hand, signaling her to stay. Then I plunged into the darkness, running toward the cries, knowing that whatever I found next could change everything. The first thing I noticed as I pushed deeper into the woods was how the snow swallowed every trace of sound. The storm muffled the world into a thick, heavy silence, broken only by the crunch of my boots and the faint, desperate cry somewhere ahead. I kept following the sound, my breath sharp in my chest, my eyes scanning between the trees. The footprints were fading fast, half buried now, nearly gone under fresh snow. Whoever made them was slowing down, faltering. The wind whipped branches above me, shaking clumps of snow that fell like small avalanches onto my shoulders. But I didn't stop. Not even when my fingers began to sting inside my gloves, or when the cold gnawed through my coat. There was something stronger pushing me forward now, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Responsibility. Not the kind I had to shareholders or investors. The human kind. The kind Claire always carried so naturally. The cry came again, this time closer. A soft, broken sound that made my pulse spike. "Hello!" I shouted. "Can you hear me?" No answer. But the air shifted, the silence tightened, and I knew she was near. I pushed past a cluster of snow-covered bushes and stumbled into a small clearing. The trees opened just enough to let a bit of moonlight filter through the storm, illuminating the space in a dim, bluish glow. And that's when I saw her. At first, she looked like part of the snowdrift. Something collapsed, curled up, still. But then I saw movement, just a little, a twitch of her hand, a tremble in her shoulders. "Ma'am!" I yelled, rushing forward. She was half buried in snow, her coat torn, her hair frozen to her face, her skin dangerously pale. One arm was twisted awkwardly beneath her. Her breath came out in weak, shaky puffs. She looked like she'd been crawling, dragging herself until her body finally gave out. I knelt beside her, wiping the snow away from her face. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" I asked urgently. Her eyelids fluttered, slowly, weakly. She turned her head just enough that I could see the bruising on her cheek, dark, swollen, fresh, my jaw clenched. This wasn't an accident. This was a struggle. "Help," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Please." "I'm here," I said, putting a hand gently on her shoulder. "Stay with me. I'm here." She tried to open her mouth again, but her teeth were chattering too violently. She was shivering, but not the kind that warms the body. This was the final stage of cold. The kind that means the body is shutting down. I had minutes, maybe less. I slid my arms under her, preparing to lift her, and that's when I felt it. Warmth. On the snow. I looked down. A smear of blood. Her blood. Her left side was soaked in a dark patch along her coat, and the snow beneath her was stained crimson. The cold had slowed the bleeding, but it was still bad. "What happened to you?" I murmured, my voice tight. She blinked weakly, her lips trembling. He followed me," she whispered. "My boss." Her voice broke off in a violent shiver. I felt a rush of heat explode through my chest, anger so sharp it felt like a blade. But this wasn't the time. I needed to get her warm. I needed to get her daughter to her. "I'm getting you out of here," I said firmly. I lifted her gently. She cried out softly in pain, her body limp, too cold to fight the movement. I cradled her against my chest, feeling how frighteningly light she was, how fragile. Her head rested against my shoulder, her breath shallow and uneven. "Lily," she whispered. "She's safe," I said immediately. "She's in my car. She came to me. She found help. You raised a brave girl." A tear slipped from the corner of her eye, freezing almost instantly on her cheek. I held her tighter. Every step back toward the car felt heavier, more urgent. I moved as fast as I could without jarring her, pushing through the thick snow, the wind clawing at us from all sides. The trees thinned. The headlights of my SUV were barely visible through the storm, a dim pair of glowing orbs cutting through the whiteout. Lily saw us first. Her hand slammed against the window. Then she flung the door open and stumbled out, the blanket still wrapped around her. "Mom!" she screamed, her voice breaking. "Stay inside!" I shouted, louder than I meant to. "It's too cold!" But she didn't listen. Of course she didn't. She ran toward us, boots slipping in the snow, eyes overflowing with tears. I stopped just a few feet from the car as Lily reached us. She pressed herself against her mother, crying hard. "Mama! Mama, wake up! Please, please!" Her mother opened her eyes just a sliver. Lily." She breathed so faint I barely heard it. I carefully shifted her weight so Lily could hold her hand. Her fingers were freezing, ice cold. I unlocked the back door and laid her gently across the seats, then cranked the heat to maximum. The warm air began blasting immediately, but her body was so cold it barely made a difference yet. Lily crawled in beside her mother, still holding her hand, sobbing quietly. "Is she okay?" she asked in a voice that already knew the answer wasn't simple. "She needs warmth," I said. "And a doctor." Lily nodded, her face streaked with melting snow and tears. I climbed into the driver's seat, hands shaking as I gripped the wheel. The storm was worsening, visibility shrinking to almost nothing. I tried dialing emergency services again, no signal. Of course, in the woods, in a blizzard, on a back road. Please work, I muttered, staring at the phone as if begging could force a connection. Nothing. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and hit the gas. The SUV lurched forward. "Hold on," I said, my voice tight. "We're going to get her somewhere warm." But as soon as the car started moving, something felt wrong. A crunching sound, then a slip. I frowned and hit the gas again. The tires spun, no traction. I checked the monitor. Snow piled too high behind the wheels. We were stuck. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered under my breath. I tried turning the wheel, rocking the car gently. Nothing. The SUV was too heavy and the snow too deep. In the back seat, Lily's frightened voice whispered, "Ethan, what's happening?" "We're going to figure it out," I said, forcing calm into my voice, but my stomach twisted. Her mother was barely conscious. Her breaths were shallow, her lips turning blue. Every second mattered. I threw the car into park, grabbed a shovel from the trunk compartment, and jumped out into the storm again. The wind punched me in the chest, almost knocking the air out of me. I started shoveling, fast, hard, desperate. The snow felt endless. My arms burned, my lungs ached from the icy air, but I kept going. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Behind me, through the storm, I could hear Lily's faint voice. "Mom, please stay awake. Please." Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Time didn't feel real anymore. Finally, after clearing enough space behind the tires, I climbed back into the driver's seat, my hands shaking from cold. "Come on," I muttered. "Come on, come on." I hit the gas. The wheels spun, then caught. The SUV jerked forward, fighting its way through the snow, climbing back onto the narrow path. I gripped the wheel with both hands as we climbed the incline, back toward the main road. Lily leaned forward, her voice trembling. "Is she gonna make it?" I didn't lie. "I'm going to do everything I can," I said, but deep down I knew if I didn't get her to warmth soon, she wouldn't. I kept my foot steady on the gas, the SUV bouncing over the rough terrain, the road barely visible. We just had to make it back to the highway. Once we were there, I could get signal. I could call for an ambulance. Something moved in the storm, a shadow, crossing the headlights. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded slightly, but stopped. "What was that?" Lily gasped. My heart hammered, because I saw it clearly now. A man, standing in the middle of the road, tall, broad, still. His jacket was torn, his face partially covered by a scarf. But even through the storm, I saw the bruised knuckles, the wild eyes, and the moment he took a step toward us, I knew exactly who he was, Lily's mother's boss, the one she said followed her, the one she said hurt her, the one she crawled through the snow to escape. He lifted something in his hand, a metal pipe. I reached for the gear lever, but before I could react, he swung the pipe violently at the SUV. The metal pipe slammed into the hood with a sound so loud it shook the entire SUV. Lily screamed. Her mom moaned faintly from the back seat, barely conscious. I gripped the steering wheel, my pulse thundering in my ears as I stared at the deranged man standing in front of us. The storm howled behind him, swirling snow around his silhouette like he was rising out of the blizzard itself. His breath came out in harsh bursts. His eyes were wild and glassy. The pipe hung loosely in his hand, but the way he tightened his grip told me he was ready to swing again. He looked like a man who'd been running from something, or running after something, for far too long, and now he had found it. "Get out of the car!" he shouted, his voice breaking with cold and madness. "Get out! She's mine! You hear me? She's mine!" Lily cried harder, curling against her mother, who weakly whispered, Lily, don't." I reached over, locking all the doors. "No one is getting out," I said through clenched teeth. The man stepped closer, snow crunching under his boots. He slammed the pipe against the window this time, cracking the glass, but not breaking it. The sound reverberated through the SUV like an earthquake. "Come out!" he screamed. "She was supposed to leave with me! She promised! She lied! She lied!" His words were fragmented, manic, like someone whose mind had shattered days ago. Lily sobbed, covering her ears. "Make him go away, Ethan, please." "I will," I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. I didn't know if he had a gun. I didn't know if he would break the glass on the next hit. All I knew was that the woman in the back seat was fading fast, and Lily was trapped in the crossfire of a nightmare she should never have been part of. If I let him get closer, this would end horribly. I threw the SUV into reverse, slamming the gas. The tires spun, struggling in the snow, then caught. The car lurched backward. The man screamed, stumbling as the headlights swung across him. He slipped in the snow, falling to one knee, but then rose again, faster than I expected, adrenaline fueling him. I turned the wheel sharply, fishtailing the SUV toward the main road. I had one goal: get out of there, get signal. Get help. The engine roared. The SUV climbed over the snowbank, tires gripping the narrow road as we sped away. But when I glanced at the rearview mirror, my blood ran cold. He was chasing us, on foot, stumbling, slipping, but relentless. His silhouette flickered in and out of the snow, but he kept coming. "He's following us," Lily cried. "He won't catch us," I said, though my heart hammered with doubt. I drove as fast as I dared on the unplowed road, scanning for any sign of the highway. The SUV bounced violently over hidden potholes. Each jolt made Lily's mother moan in pain. Mom, stay awake," Lily begged. Her mother's voice was faint, trembling. Lily, my sweet girl." I looked back quickly. Her eyes were half closed, her breathing shallow, her skin turning frighteningly pale. She was slipping, fast. "Hold her hand," I said. "Talk to her. Keep her awake." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, Mom. Please don't go. Please don't go. Stay with me." The sound of her sobbing filled the car, cutting deeper into me than I knew anything could. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the outline of the highway appeared through the snow. The dim glow of streetlights flickered through the storm. Come on," I whispered. The moment the SUV's wheels touched the highway, my phone buzzed to life. Signal. 4 bars. I grabbed the phone with one hand, still steering with the other, and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "This is Ethan Cole," I said, my voice sharp and fast. "I have a woman with hypothermia, possible internal bleeding, possibly assaulted. She's barely conscious. I have her daughter with me. I'm on County Road 14 heading toward the main highway. Send paramedics immediately." The operator spoke quickly, clearly grasping the severity. "We are dispatching an ambulance now. Can you keep her warm and alert?" "I'm trying," I said. "Is the assailant present?" I glanced at the mirror. The woods behind us were empty now. He must have given up the chase when he reached the road and saw how fast we were moving. "He was," I said. "Not anymore. Stay on the line until responders arrive." "I can't. I need both hands," I said. "Just get them here." I ended the call and pressed the gas harder. Traffic lights appeared through the storm, then the outline of Millie's diner glowing faintly in the distance. I pulled into the parking lot, skidding slightly on the ice, and then sirens. Blue and red lights cut through the snow. The ambulance swung into the lot, tires crunching loud enough to echo. 2 paramedics jumped out immediately, carrying equipment, their movements fast and focused. One opened the back door of my SUV and froze for a second. "Oh, God," he muttered. "She's severely hypothermic." They moved quickly, lifting her, wrapping her in warming blankets, checking her pulse, stabilizing her breathing. Lily tried to follow, panic rising. Wait, don't take her," she cried. A paramedic knelt to her eye level. "Sweetheart, we're helping her. You can ride with us." Lily grabbed her mother's hand as they lifted the stretcher. "Mom, I'm here. I'm not leaving you." I stayed close behind them, shielding Lily from the wind. They loaded her mother into the ambulance, hooking her to warm IV fluids and monitoring her vitals. A paramedic turned to me. "Sir, we need her full name." "Grace Carter," I said. I'd seen it on a work badge in the car. He nodded. "She's critical, but she has a chance." Lily looked up at me through tears. "Is she going to be okay?" "I think she will," I said softly. "She's strong, just like you." The paramedic gestured to Lily. "She can ride with us. You follow behind." I nodded. But as Lily climbed into the ambulance, she turned back, her voice trembling. "Ethan, you're coming, right?" That hit me deeper than anything she'd said tonight. "Yes," I answered. "I'm right behind you." The doors closed, sirens wailed, and the ambulance sped off. I jumped into my SUV and followed. And the whole way to the hospital, my mind replayed everything. Her small hand hitting my door, her voice saying, "My mom never came home last night." And the truth behind it all. If she hadn't come to me, if she hadn't walked through that storm alone, her mother would have died in the snow. The hospital lights were harsh and too bright as we rushed in behind the stretcher. Doctors and nurses swarmed Grace, calling out medical terms and numbers. They disappeared behind double doors with her, leaving Lily standing in the hallway, shaking and crying, clutching my jacket around her shoulders. She turned to me with terrified eyes. What if she doesn't wake up?" I knelt down to her level. "She will," I said. "I swear to you, she will." "But what if they take me away?" she whispered. "They'll say Mom can't take care of me. They'll send me somewhere. I don't want to go. I want to stay with her." "I want to stay with Mom." Her voice broke. I didn't think. I just acted. I put my hands gently on her shoulders. "No one is taking you away," I said, steady and certain. "Not while she's fighting. And until she wakes up, you're with me. You're safe." "Promise?" "Promise." She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of my jacket. Minutes passed, then hours. Doctors entered and exited the room behind the glass. Nurses carried in warm IVs, oxygen, blankets. Machines beeped rhythmically. Lily fell asleep against my arm at some point, exhausted from fear, from cold, from everything life had thrown at her. I stayed awake, watching the door, waiting, thinking. This little girl had walked through a blizzard to ask me for help, me, of all people. A man who had been emotionally frozen for years, hiding behind money, hiding from grief, hiding from the world. And yet, tonight, she made me walk back into a storm I'd been avoiding for 3 years. A storm I thought I couldn't face ever again, and I survived it, because this time I wasn't too late. Hours later, just as the first hint of morning light touched the snow outside, the doctor stepped into the hallway. Lily jerked awake, clutching my arm. The doctor smiled gently. "She's stable," he said. "She'll need time, but she's going to make it." Lily let out a noise, half sob, half laugh, and threw herself against me in relief. I held her tightly, feeling her small body shake against mine. "She's going to be okay," she repeated. "She's really going to be okay." "Yes," I whispered, "she is." But the doctor wasn't done. "The wound on her side was from a sharp object," he said quietly. "It's definitely an assault. We'll need a police report." I nodded. "I'll handle it," I said, and I meant it. The man who chased us, the man who attacked her, he wasn't going to hurt her again, or anyone else. 2 days later, Grace woke up. Her voice was weak, her movements slow. But when she saw Lily curled up asleep in the chair beside her bed, she cried silently, touching her daughter's hair with trembling fingers. When Lily woke and saw her mother's eyes open, she let out a sound I'll never forget. Pure relief. Pure love. I stepped outside the room to give them a moment alone. Grace survived. Lily was safe, and for the first time in years, I felt something warm in my chest. A thaw. When Grace was strong enough to speak clearly, she asked to see me. I walked into her hospital room quietly. She looked fragile, pale, bruised, stitched, but her eyes were fierce. "Thank you," she whispered. I shook my head. "You did the hard part." "No," she said, her voice trembling. "If you hadn't helped her, if you hadn't followed her, I wouldn't be here." She swallowed. "My little girl walked through a snowstorm to your house," she said, "because she believed you were good." Her eyes glistened. And she was right. I looked away, throat tight. "You saved my life," she whispered. "You saved my daughter's mother." Lily squeezed her mom's hand, then looked at me with a small, tired smile. "You came," she said quietly. "You didn't leave us." "No," I said. "I didn't." And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't feel like the man who'd failed Claire anymore. For the first time in a long time. I had gotten there in time. I had done something good. Not for a company, not for a board, not for money. For two people who needed someone, anyone, to care. And I did. When they were discharged weeks later, I helped them into a temporary apartment, not a trailer, a warm place, a safe place. It wasn't charity, it was responsibility, it was humanity, it was healing for all of us. Lily hugged me tightly before they left. "I knew you'd help us," she said. "Mom said you were a good man." She was right, and for the first time in years, I believed it.